Hello and welcome to Inside the Tape on the Inside the Birds platform. I'm Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan, and with us as always to break down the tape is Greg Cosell. Greg, the Eagles lose to Tampa Bay 33-16. I don't know if people are confused as to what happened to the Eagles, right? Why it happened is what we're really going to get through as we get your observations on the tape breakdown from the 33-16 week 4 loss. As we always do, Greg, we start off with what just jumps out at you from a big picture standpoint from a game like this. So go ahead.
Oh boy. Obviously they got off to a really bad start and they were down 21-0. I think they went in with a certain defensive approach, which is kind of their approach. They're not really a press coverage team. They start everything pretty much playing quarters with a quarters look, and their corners play off. And, obviously the Bucs know the Vic Fangio model. And so what really struck me immediately with the Bucs offense was the quick rhythm pass game. Everything got out quick. And they were able, because of, I don't want to call it soft coverage, that would not be the right word, but because they weren't really disrupting receivers, that there was no disruption of the pass game, and that's where Baker's at his absolute best. And I noticed that right away, and I remember just saying to the guys in the matchup room, I said, God, Baker looks so good. It's hit that back, plant that back foot, ball comes out, plant the back foot, ball comes out. And, it just seemed, because he didn't really hit big plays. Like, it wasn't like he hit 50-yard passes down the field. But they clearly came in with a plan to throw the ball because of the number of throws. I think in the first half, I don't have the number in front of me, but Geoff, didn't he have close to 30 or right around 30 throws? He had a ridiculously high number of first half throws, and that's what I noticed. That was 33. Yeah, that was their game plan. Clearly, they felt that, number one, with the quick rhythm pass game, that the Eagles pass rush wouldn't be a factor, and that given the way that the Eagles normally play on the back end without disrupting routes, that Baker could be in rhythm and they could, complete passes. And, sometimes as a defense, things start to snowball and you don't make an adjustment until it's too late. And they tried to make an adjustment and play a little more man later on, but they got beat that way too at times. But that's the first thing I noticed watching that side of the ball. Offensively, again, I'm sure they're struggling as well. So I don't want to make it sound like I know more than they do, because I don't. They're doing it every day. But I feel like they're still struggling for what they believe their offensive identity should be. It's easy to say, well, terrible play calling by Kellen Moore. 7 of their first 9 plays were passes when they have Barkley. That's easy to say. And I'm not the kind of person who will say that, as you guys know. My larger point is, I think they're struggling to figure out how the run game and pass game can work together.
Did you notice any adjustment? You said that they played more man coverage as the game went on.
They had to match up at times because of the way they were getting beat. But I don't think at their core they're a man coverage team. Don't forget, Quinyon Mitchell does not have much experience playing press at all. I mean, I think he's physically capable of it, but you got to teach him how to do that at the NFL level. I'm sure they're working with him on it. I don't know where they stand in the process, but, he's certainly got enough physical traits to do so. But if you haven't done it, you haven't done it. It's like when you ask you say to somebody, oh, can you help me with this? And they say, oh, well, that's easy. Yeah, well, it's easy because you know how to do it. And I don't, I mean, if you haven't done it, it's not easy. You gotta practice it.
Greg, let me ask you a question, since we're talking about the secondary and coverages and so forth. We've had a lot of questions about Avonte Maddox. You've seen him now for the 4 games. We know that he lined up in safety in training camp, but he's nickel now. But they've got Cooper DeJean, who Vic Fangio did kind of allude to this week when he was asked about him.
He's going to play. Cooper DeJean, if he's ready after the bye, and I have no inside information, if he's ready after the bye, if they feel that, with more practice, more healing of his body, my guess is you'll see him as the slot corner after the bye.
All right, what have you seen from Maddox is what I was getting at.
I think Maddox has struggled both in coverage and as a run player. he's not been a great tackler. And I think you need to be better at that position in the NFL when you play so many snaps in your nickel defense. And I don't think he's been good enough by NFL standards. And that's what the tape says. So and they don't forget they drafted Cooper DeJean in the second round. It's not like he's a 6th-round pick just hanging out. I mean, they drafted him in the second round with the idea that he would be their star as a first-year player. I think down the road they see him probably as a great safety, but I think right now they see him as their slot or star, as it's called in a lot of defenses. And like I said, it would not surprise me at all if he's playing that position. Is it Cleveland after the bye?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. It would not surprise me if he's in that position after the bye.
There you go.
I love how you said that's what the tape says, Greg, because we're going to take a look at it right now as we look at Avonte Maddox in particular. So good segue there and good question by Adam.
Well, the other thing too is as you run this, and I'm sure, is that going to be the first play?
This will be the first play. Yes, it'll be Chris
I think
Godwin.
that Vic would really prefer a more physical player too in that spot. You know, Maddox obviously has quickness and all that good stuff, but he's small. He's really small. It's hard for him to be physical. I mean, I can think back over the years where teams ran at the Eagles slot, they ran at him. You know, he can't hold up to that. And Cooper DeJean is a bigger physical guy. And I think probably, and I hate to use this word, but I think it applies. I think just his feel and his instincts are better.
Right. We'll see. He did say he was closing in on that spot, and plays like this is pretty early in the game. You see the Bucs here, and this is Shanahan style. I'm sorry, McVay style.
Yeah, I mean it's Liam Cohen who comes from
the
Rams, Sean McVay. So the first thing you notice here, and Geoff, we talked about this earlier in the week. You notice the cut splits by the wide receivers because I think it's 11 personnel, and you're going to see motion. Two things that are foundational to a Liam Cohen offense because he comes from the Rams. You're seeing reduced splits or cut splits, as I said, and motion. Two things that are obviously the Eagles aren't going to play the Bucs again unless they happen to get to the playoffs and play again. But that's what the Bucs do.
Right. And the focus here would be on the inside receiver, the number 2 here, which is Chris Godwin. And then, of course, the matchup, I believe Godwin here, and then the matchup with Avonte Maddox. So as we run it, you can see here's the motion.
And by the way, that doesn't automatically mean it's man. They could also be doing that because they need another body to the other side. You know, everybody automatically assumes now because someone runs across the formation with a receiver that it's man. Defenses have become far more sophisticated in the NFL that it's not always man. It can be for sure, but it's not 100% a man zone indicator the way it was, 10 or 15 years ago.
Sure. And as we saw the play run, it does look sort of like it's a man concept here, right?
This does look mannish. This one does look mannish.
Right. So not only do they get Godwin sort of
isolated, they want to get him in space.
Right. But also, Greg, I mean, you could see the routes that the other receivers are running are taking. And I think this is a big issue I want to talk about with you. It's not just that we're about to see a missed tackle here, but there's not a secondary or tertiary.
Well, the play is designed for Godwin. I mean, this is basically a no-read concept. You know, if the play is designed for Godwin, the route by the receiver up top, who's not Evans. So is that Palmer?
I believe this is Trey Palmer here. Yep.
His route is intentionally designed because even if they weren't playing pure man, which they are, Slay would still have to go with him. You know, even if it was zone. Let's say Slay was playing off coverage zone. When Palmer releases vertically, Slay still has to account for him.
Yep.
He would just play different technique if it was zone, but he still has to run with him.
Right.
So this play is 100% designed for Godwin.
Yep. And then
so you're getting Godwin in space, and Godwin is a big physical receiver against a little man. That's what they're doing here.
Now this is bad technique too. I mean, obviously you dive at the ankles. You have
he's in a tough spot. I don't want to make it sound like Maddox, stinks, but he's in a tough spot because even if he's squared up, you got 6'1", 215 versus a little guy. He's going to
Right.
be in a tough spot either way. And because he's running across the formation, it's tough for him to really square up and come to balance.
Right. The fact that he can't sort of body him a little bit allows him to not slow down Chris Godwin, so that
Correct.
even everybody else's momentum is sort of going the other way. And look,
So a behind the line of scrimmage pass
mm-hmm.
becomes what? It was just 28 yards or 26
28
yards?
yards. You got to appreciate the downfield blocking here by Trey Palmer, I believe
Yep.
that we said.
Yep.
I don't know
And
if
that's
that's the
what
greatest attempt to get off a block, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
So
So I
there
mean,
it goes.
and that's what, if you're the Bucs, this is the kind of stuff you want to do. It's a no read throw for Baker. It's an easy throw, and you get a 28-yard explosive play.
Absolutely. And we saw a couple of examples of that throughout the night. Obviously, we can look at another one in a second, but I think the spacing on that is really important, right, Greg? As you mentioned, being a no read play, there wasn't really anybody else to help out because he couldn't slow him down in that situation.
And that's why you do the cut split with Palmer as well, because now Slay is so far inside that he's not really in position to even deal with that until, Godwin gains 10, 11, 12 yards.
Sure.
So at worst, it's a 10, 11, 12, 13-yard gain, and you're still happy with it because you get a first down.
Right. All right, here's another one. This is a run by Rachaad White. And
again, notice what I was saying about how the Eagles line up, what their model is and their profile. It's quarters look with the safeties, and it's corners off. And again, you're seeing cut splits.
Same, basically the same look. Just you have two receivers to the right here.
This one's a 3-by-1 because the tight end's up top. This is 3-by-1, and Evans, I believe, down below is the boundary X with a cut split.
Yep, and here's your motion that you talk about, and that just brings the safety down. Here's the handoff.
Well, see, go back, Geoff. See, look what happens with the motion, and this is what you want. Look at the second level defenders; they bump over.
Yep, they shift with the motion.
Now that's usually a pretty good indicator that it's zone when they bump.
Right.
So, but they shift because they're going to go back the other way. And why is it important, the motion with the bump like that? Better blocking angles because the play's going the other way.
Right. So he's going to head to the right here. And as you can see, you've got two Eagles blocked off. This is, I believe, Nolan Smith, and this one is Avonte Maddox, who is being blocked out.
Well, there you go.
Pretty strongly there by Chris Godwin, wide receiver.
Just look how much bigger Godwin looks than
it does.
when they make contact.
About 4 inches on him at least.
Now that's not the entire part of bad with the play. Here's
then you need, this is where your corner has to come up and make a tackle. Because if Slay makes that tackle, it's a 1-yard gain or a 2-yard gain, and you go home happy. But this is where Slay, takes a bad angle and gets beaten to the outside.
Yeah. And if you look, as we'll go to the end zone angle here, it was Josh Sweat, actually, my fault, not Nolan Smith. I guess I was just getting used to Nolan Smith getting blocked out. Now, does he not keep enough outside contain here?
So high.
He can't. I mean, he's used to be good at getting off a block, right? And
Can you go back to the sideline, Geoff?
Sure.
I'm trying to see.
This is
where I'm being honest. I don't want to say I'm confused, but the Eagles don't know what the play is, okay?
Right.
So let's say that this is a pass. Let's just, for sake of discussion, say it's a pass and there's no motion, and both those receivers to the top of the screen, not the tight end, but the two cut split wideouts. Right. Let's say they release and run routes. Okay. That means that Slay would have to, retreat. And that means that Maddox would have to drop into probably an underneath zone because they're playing zone.
Right.
So to me, Sweat is the edge setter here.
Yes.
Because you don't know what the play is.
Right.
So, so now with Sway kind of sliding a little inside, it's tough to set the edge. Like, he's got to get outside of that block.
Right. Right.
He's got to turn this inside.
Because you want the running back here to see the color and then get the running back to go inside.
Cut inside
where there's
off
so much
the block
traffic
by the tight end as opposed to bouncing outside.
Right. Yeah. So you have a couple of people here who just did not get their job.
I think, again, if a coach is watching this and tells me I'm wrong, I could well be, but I think that's correct.
Got it. So another kind of example of you get maybe bad alignment there, but also we didn't get the tackling from Slay. You didn't get the angle there, and then a big play was the result from that.
And, you know, coaches will always tell you now that it comes down to technique and fundamentals, and more often than not, it does. But, you know, obviously, if it keeps happening, you got to figure it out.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
this one, next one, Greg, you might have a field day with. This is a Bucky Irving run that turns out to be, I believe, 15 yards.
Yeah, and notice that you have motion because Otten went in motion from the field side of the formation, crossing to the boundary side.
Yeah, he
So
must have picked up a lot of momentum going in motion there, Greg.
yeah,
You can explain what happens right here.
well, he's responsible for the widest. Go back if you can, as far back. You know, he's responsible for the widest defender on the edge, and
That
that's
would be
going to be
Nolan
Nolan
Smith.
Smith.
Right.
So, and you'll see that he kind of does his job here.
To say the least.
Yeah, so he just blows up Smith, and then that creates. So now, because he's responsible for that guy, the right tackle School can go up to the second level cleanly, and then and then they have the angles inside. So this was set up. I mean, this played out perfectly for the Bucs.
Exactly, and you know you can see the right tackle. Then that's Zach Baun that he's got his hands on, and he's blocking him well. And of course, Nakobe is trying to get in to fill that gap, but he's getting blocked.
If Nakobe, Nakobe is, if blockers get clean to Nakobe, it's tough for him. He's just too small.
Right. And nice job getting skinny through the hole there, even with, because there's traffic there for Irving, and he keeps his feet.
Irving's a good back. I liked him coming out of Oregon. He's just 5'9", 192, but he's a good back.
And look at here how Zach Baun is still he's really struggling to get off this block, and because ideally you would like still to be able to get off that.
Well, it's funny. That's what I said with the Patreon folks last night. At some point, you know, we can talk about scheme, and I'm a big believer in scheme, as you guys both know. But at some point, it becomes matchups and man to man, and you know, whatever it is, corners have to cover. Baun has to get off a block. I mean, those things have to happen. I mean, that's the game. I remember years ago when Chris Spielman was doing games for either CBS or Fox or whatever, and I got a chance to talk with him. And I asked him, when you're preparing and you start your preparation for a game on Sunday, what's the first thing you look at? He said matchups. You know, it's a matchup game in many ways. So, you know, sometimes you got to win matchups.
Yep. And to you asked for, maybe this view will help you because you don't yet see Otten from
well, there you go. Yeah.
Here he's coming into motion now.
He's going to stem across the formation.
Yep.
And they're in 12 personnel here. There's 2 tight ends.
Right. Look at that. Now you see now you really see Otten just level into Nolan Smith, and he decleats him.
Well, actually, see, and this is a really good job by keep going. Whoever ends up with Dean here.
That would be the other tight end. Yeah.
It's Durham, Payne Durham.
Yeah, that's a nice turnaround ability to
see,
block.
if you're going to cut underneath like Dean does there, cut underneath blocks, then you got to make the play.
Right.
Because you're taking yourself out of the play.
I feel like he does a better job of that when he's going downhill and not side to side as far as cutting around blocks.
I would agree.
Yeah. And then, so we all know what happened after that. And then he gets extra yards. A lot of these plays, Greg, just extra yards because they were the more physical team there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, backs with finishing traits. I mean, there was another run early in the game where White had a 17-yarder where Gardner Johnson was clean in the hole, and that was the design of the defense for him to be in that gap, and he just missed the tackle.
Right.
This was a game where you could truly say they were missed tackles. Sometimes you hear that stat, and then I look at the plays and I think to myself, that's not really a missed tackle. Right. You know, this time there were a lot of missed tackles.
Yes, even Vic Fangio said himself 15 is what the team counted.
So
that means in their mind, that's the number. I mean, I didn't chart the number, but I knew there were a lot.
Did you think they were okay? So we talked earlier this season, might have been the Atlanta game. They were not really aligned like you'd want them. They were going vertical, whatever the case, whatever.
No, I mean, I'm always a little leery of talking about that because when I see people talk about alignment, I think to myself, oh, I've seen that alignment many times and teams make plays from that alignment. So I'm always leery of saying a team is aligned wrong because I don't know. You know, sometimes you're aligned a certain way and you're expecting a guy to, you know, control a gap and he doesn't. And, you know, then it makes it look like it's bad. You know,
had a bad play.
Yeah,
they had too many of them. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Greg, I wanted to take a look at the Mike Evans touchdown, which was the first touchdown of the game, and we'll talk about the coverage element of it and what the Bucs did
That
here.
was so beautiful, so beautiful.
Okay. Set the stage here for me, if you will.
All right, well, they line up in a bunch, okay? It's wasn't this either third or fourth down?
I believe it was third down.
Third down. So they knew they were going to get man here. This is down here, you're not playing zone on third down, because you can't give a void up. It's a touchdown. So you got to match up, okay? They know this from film study. So what they have here, so people, because they can see it, obviously, is you have what we call a 1x3 nub set. In other words, the tight end is the single receiver to the boundary, and he's attached to the formation, so we call that nub. So then you've got a tight bunch to the field. Okay, now the Eagles are matched up man to man. Evans is the point man here, right?
He's the lead guy up front. He's the number two, right, as you would say on the left side.
Yeah, he's the point man in the bunch. He's number 2. So Godwin is number 3 inside, and Johnson,
19.
19?
I think that's
I think that
it's
undrafted
Johnson.
rookie, that kid Johnson. Yeah.
It's Johnson. Okay. So the Eagles are matched up man to man now. So what they have is they've got the outside corner Mitchell on Johnson, they've got the slot corner on Evans, and they've got the safety Gardner Johnson on Godwin. So now look at what they do here. If you can just run it, they put they put Godwin in what we call short burst motion. So what do the Eagles do? They bump the coverage. It's still man, so freeze it there. So now they bumped out the coverage. So Mitchell's now playing Godwin, okay? Maddox moves over to play Johnson, and now you have Gardner Johnson on Evans. This is exactly what the Bucs wanted, okay? Because now you have a safety, as good as Gardner Johnson can be, matched against one of the better receivers in the league, okay? This is why they did the motion. They did it for a reason. They didn't, do it on a whim. They did it for a reason. So now run the play.
Is this a two-way go for Evans here?
Or
is it always a corner?
I would doubt it, judging by the way Baker drops back and is looking. But I don't know that for a fact. But he obviously beats him, and they got the matchup they wanted, and it becomes pitch and catch. It's beautifully designed.
One might say, Greg, that 2 years ago you had C.J. Gardner Johnson for reasons like this because he played nickel in New Orleans and he was
pretty good. Look, again, this is one of those plays where you can't say, "Oh, what do the Eagles do?" Gardner Johnson has shown the ability throughout his career to match up to wide receivers, but he's still a safety, and the Bucs wanted this matchup and they got it, and Evans beat Gardner Johnson. It's one of those plays.
Design beat him.
The design and the personnel won,
and you could, by the way, CJ, as many D-backs do when they get beat, he wanted some kind of contact call from this, which is nothing, but you could see how he's catching.
And by the way, I would doubt that he has an option. I'll tell you why, Geoff. Go back.
Okay.
Because look at Godwin's route.
You're right. He would run into Godwin if he tried to break it to the inside.
They'd both be running into the same inside. And actually Godwin would have been open too. He was open if Evans fell down,
Well, is that a tougher throw over 2 linebackers though, to try to get it to Godwin?
Possibly. Could have been.
Yeah. But
the play was designed for Evans.
Right.
The throw was designed for Evans.
Of course.
And he has almost a half a foot on Gardner Johnson. He's got 5 6 inches on.
I get a kick out of Gardner Johnson trying to plead his case here about contact.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. That's not, you're not going to get that
Just
call.
Beautiful design in the low red zone. Beautiful design.
Absolutely. All right, one more play, because we've been talking about coverage and off coverage, right, in this game, and I want to go to a 3rd and long situation.
You're talking about the pass to Shepard on the outcut.
I am. We're going to diagnose that.
That one, I think something was not right in terms of execution. You can show it.
Sure. No, that's fine.
Because Mitchell was playing so far off. I mean, I don't know if something was lost in translation. I mean, it's 3rd and like 15, right? Something like that.
Yes. 3rd and long. I think it's 3rd and 15. Yeah, that's what it is.
So the ball's on the 25, and it's still kind of a reduced split a little bit. But Mitchell's playing almost 15 yards off. 10 yards off of him.
And this is Sterling Shepard, by the way. We're not talking about Godwin, Evans, or even.
So I mean, again, this is one where I don't know. I mean, obviously it's a completion. It looks bad. It looks like, what the hell's Mitchell doing? But you know, I don't know. I mean, they're
Right.
still in that quarters 4 across look.
I do believe Vic blitzes linebacker on or both of them actually. So he goes 6. Yeah, nobody drops. It's a 6-man rush.
Well, they end up going a single high. Yeah.
They switch to a single high, right? It is man, right? Because you have
It's man.
yeah,
And
you
that's
see the
why what
D-backs
Mitchell
running.
did, that's why it leads me to believe Mitchell made a mistake.
I mean, look how far
Mm.
it's amazing to me how far off
Yeah.
that he is. He just gives Sterling Shepard first down here.
Yeah. I mean, this is pitch and catch.
Yep. You could argue
So,
that a different receiver, if it's somebody else, might be able to turn it upfield and cut and get into the end zone. But my gosh, 3rd and long.
yeah, I have to believe that Mitchell didn't play this with the proper technique. I
Right.
just have to believe that.
Right.
Because it's a man, that was a man concept.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So that's where we were with defense. So a lot to clean up on the defensive side. Let's move over to the offensive side now. What really jumped out? You mentioned sort of this marriage between the run and pass, and yes, they've been criticized for not running a little bit more on first down. I know I myself pointed out that on their 4 first plays of their first 4 possessions, they passed the ball 3 times, especially the first 3 possessions. They started off with a pass, and you were interesting because with our Patreon crowd, you said, "Hey, look, sometimes coaches do this to get their quarterbacks in a
Yeah.
rhythm."
And with Hurts, you're really trying to do that because he is struggling mightily right now, and you're working hard to try to get him in a rhythm early and to feel comfortable. So it's easy to say, "Oh, you got Barkley, run the ball." That's easy to say, okay? And you guys know me well enough to know that I don't just say, stuff like that as if it's gospel.
Right.
It's easy to, I believe Barkley should be the starting point of the offense, but that's a relative term. That doesn't mean you just come out and just hand the ball to him because, the thing is, let's say you do hand the ball to him and he gains 2 yards on the first play and 1 yard on the second play. Then your quarterback his first throw is 3rd and 7. I mean, you can't just say, well, everything would be great if we just handed the ball to Barkley because we have access to the results and they weren't good. So it's easy now to say, well, if they had done this, everything would have been great. We don't know that. So it's a balance, and there's no right or wrong answer here. And I'm not a coach, and I'm not in their meetings all week, but you do have to find a way. And I appreciate, because I've been fortunate in my career to be in meetings with coaches at training camps and to have great conversations with coaches. You do have to find a way for Barkley to be involved early, while at the same time having Hurts get comfortable. Like a team like the Niners does a great job of that, with both getting Purdy comfortable, but yet letting the back get involved. I'm not a coordinator. I'm not a coach. I'm not going to sit here and say I've got the magic answer. But there's clearly ways in which that's done. Teams do that. And my guess is Kellen Moore is trying to figure that out.
Well, let's take a look at the first play then, because maybe he was trying to get both guys, Barkley and Hurts, in a good
this
rhythm
was
here.
mirrored routes. Okay, you're going to end up getting curl flat to each side with a sit route right in front of Hurts. That's what the play is.
All right. So as you can see, it is a 12 or no. This is the first. This is the pony personnel, right? Because you have Barkley here and Will Shipley there, and we never saw another snap of this again after this play.
Yeah, we never saw Shipley in the game again.
Right.
So strange.
So like I said, it's mirrored routes. It's curl flat to each side with the tight end Goddard, sitting over Hurts. Now, you could argue that he should have gone right to Goddard right now. You could argue that. He looks right at him. The throw's there. You could argue that. I mean,
right, because you're really just trying to get a short gain here, right? Just
you're trying to get
it's almost like your run play.
You're trying to get Hurts a completion so he starts to feel comfortable in the game.
Yeah, quick game also, Greg.
Yeah.
There's no quick game.
Quick throw, yeah. I mean, that's that against this coverage, and given the drop of Hurts, because look how the drop of Hurts syncs up with Goddard right here. Boom, hit that and put it
Back
on.
foot out. Yeah.
Right. I know some people are going to look at it and say, no, the linebackers, no, the way the play unfolds, if you plant your foot and throw it now, because you're anticipating him sitting down right here.
Look what the linebacker sits.
This is open in the NFL. Goddard's turned around. No one, he's going to get tackled there, but you get a 5-yard gain.
That's,
But,
by the way, that's called an explosive play. 5 yards or more is called explosive.
Yeah. And by the
For
way,
first
I've
down,
seen
correct.
Hurts make this throw to Goddard before. He just
Yeah.
didn't do it on this
Yeah.
particular play.
And he, you know, for some reason he didn't throw it. And now, again, you could argue too that if he's not going to throw that, because that to me would be the first look. Go back just a little bit, Geoff. That, you know, then it becomes where you're looking, because he could have thrown it. Who's the receiver down below? Is that Wilson?
This is right here or here?
That's Barkley. Barkley's 28.
We got Barkley at the
right there.
30 and Wilson at the 40.
You could have said that, you know, he could have thrown it to Wilson now.
Yeah, Wilson does a
Right
stutter
there.
step.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you wonder about the trust issue there, Greg. I mean, I know that's been speculated.
And I agree.
I'm
not gonna sit here, but the point is there was a throw here.
Yep, there is. You see that play made pretty often in the NFL. As long as you're in front of the defender on a comeback. In fact, AJ Brown catches more comebacks than anybody, which is why you wonder if it's a trust issue.
This is the kind of play that coordinators, you know, just you know, they break their pencils if they're up in the booth, or if they're not. You know, I mean, because, you know, you're calling this to get your quarterback comfortable. The ball should have been out somewhere here.
Right.
Ideally to Goddard and then to Wilson.
See, what happens also, guys, at home, fans are watching on TV, the play breaks down, and they blame Kellen Moore. They have no idea that the play was designed correctly. The quarterback didn't throw the football.
Right. And then he leaves the pocket.
Yeah,
he
leaves the pocket.
About this play is
all right.
Barkley ends up being wide open, and you know, in 2022 he would have hit him and for a touchdown, and we'd, you know, but this one he throws out of bounds,
and he could make that throw. I mean,
without question.
And that's what I noticed too. He throws this out of bounds off his back foot because he does feel the defense pursue. But I wondered if he just could have just reset quickly here, you're going to take a hit, and then throw a better ball.
Possibly, but the point
easy for me to say. I know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that.
But the point is, you're calling a play to get your quarterback comfortable, so you can't argue. You can't say, "Well, they should have handed it to Barkley." I mean, that's easy to say, but you know, they called a play. It's a staple in every playbook in the NFL. It's mirrored. You know, when you're trying to get a quarterback comfortable, a lot of times you call mirrored routes because you end up, in a sense, pick a side, and you got the sit route right in front of you, which is an easy throw. So, by NFL standards, you know, you've got to throw there. That ball should have been thrown somewhere.
All right. On that note, let's take a look at the fumble later in the game as they're trying to come back. I wanted to get your feeling on.
All right. Well, let's
someone's open.
Let's walk through this in stages, okay? Let's look at the routes first. Let's look at Dotson and Calcaterra, because I think it's Dotson in motion, is it not?
That is Dotson, yeah, coming across the line.
So what's Dotson and Calcaterra?
Okay, so Dotson comes across.
Focus on them first. Let's start playing it out, and then we'll go back. So you run it. They get a 2-on-1 on the safety Isian. Keep going. They got a 2-on-1.
Right here. Right here is the Isian.
Yeah, that's Isian. You got a 2-on-1.
Bam, bam.
Yeah, you can either hit him earlier, you know, boom, or if you are protected, you got him wide open. Okay, it's a 2-on-1. That's the whole design. Okay.
Yep.
So now look. Now let's go back.
Did he really have enough time to throw it?
No, he didn't. But we're going to now get into that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was Greg was pointing out what the design of the play is to try to get it to one of those two guys.
Yeah. So they were open. If it was protected, you bam. I got you.
Right.
Yeah. So what happens is David blitzes through the A gap, and that's Barkley's guy, and Barkley does not block him.
You know, I was going to ask you about that. Is it that he did I mean, here you see him engage. He's engaged. He's
Gets shoved. Look at him. He gets shoved.
He got
right
blown
back.
up. He got blown up.
He got blown up.
Yeah, that's true. He does not stonewall him.
You'll see from the end zone if you go there. So Hurts has to move. He tries to reset because he still knows that he might have Calcaterra. He's you know, but he's too nonchalant about it.
You're
Look,
right.
You can see it from here. Look how he just gets shoved right back. Hurts has to move.
Right. So you can even see Calcaterra here. Hurts can barely see that route because David's already in his head.
So he moves, and he probably sees Calcaterra. And he sees, thinking, I got a touchdown. That's who he's throwing it to.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean,
and that would have been a touchdown
but he's a little too nonchalant. You know, you can't act like David is all of a sudden, you know, left the planet.
Out of the play, right? Sure.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
But Barkley, I mean, Barkley's got to make that block.
Right. So again, good play call, just not execution. Look how
No.
By the way,
look
Greg,
how open he is.
guys, not only that, step up. The line of LOS was at the 19. He's got plenty of room to step up in the pocket and make the throw instead of, like Greg said, being
Right.
nonchalant.
Right.
How long have we talked about him stepping in the pocket? He needs to do a better
Climbing
job.
the pocket. Yeah, if he
But I
made
mean,
it's a little climb, he probably has.
and I'm not defending Hurts here, but Barkley's got to make that block. That's the bottom line. He's got to make that block.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
So I wanted to juxtapose that a little bit because you've talked about with Hurts seeing it and ripping it, right?
Right.
And one of the better throws in this game, and maybe an example of what you're talking about, was the touchdown that Baker Mayfield threw to Trey Palmer.
Oh, that was high-level quarterbacking.
Yeah, really, a good example of just, all right, I'm going to make this throw and I can do it. And I will bring it up here.
That was high-level quarterbacking.
Yeah, I want you to explain the
that was
process.
nuanced quarterbacking.
All right, so what are you seeing here with the line? They're obviously in a spread formation, one back against the Eagles here.
Yeah, it's 3-by-1.
Mhm.
Palmer up top's the boundary X. So it's 3-by-1, and the Eagles are essentially playing again a quarters look, but Slay is in press position up top on Palmer.
Yep.
All right. So I'm trying to remember the details of this play. So
I can run it here as it starts off.
Let's see. They are actually in pony. They got two backs on the field here. They got
that is
White.
you're right. That's White as the number 3 on the left side, running sort of like a fake screen.
So the Eagles essentially here, now that I'm remembering the play, Geoff.
Yeah. Is this what you call one robber?
They kind of played zone to trips and matched up to the boundary with Slay on Palmer. And I believe that, was it Blankenship? Is he the safety to that side?
Is the safety coming down right now.
He's coming down to match the back. So the way I saw this, without knowing every nuance of how they play their coverages, is it looks like it's zone to trips and they're matching to the boundary. Does it not look like that to you?
It does look like that, yes. Which is a complex defense, by the way. You're asking them to play man on one side and zone on the other.
So Baker knows what he has here. He drops back. He's going to work to the boundary. So that's the read. That's why his head goes right there. He's going to work to the boundary.
Yep.
So if Blankenship stayed back, he would have thrown the ball into the flat immediately.
Sure.
But he sees Blankenship move, so now he knows that there's no safety there. Okay, so now he knows he's got one-on-one, and he knows that Dean is the guy he's got to beat with the throw. Right. So he can't throw it in the first window because Palmer's looking for the ball, because this is 3-step drop timing. You can see that technically Baker was ready to throw. But he can't throw it in the first window because he'd end up throwing it to Dean.
Right there. Dean is just sitting there waiting.
So he has to wait, and it's timing,
look at that.
anticipation.
What a throw!
If you see it, and
ball. Oh, adjustment. Whose hand?
That's Dean. That's Nakobe Dean.
Yeah.
I mean, Nakobe's watching it the whole way.
And Dean probably kicking probably by 6 inches to a foot when you see it from behind Baker.
Remember when we did the Saquon Barkley wheel route touchdown, and we went and looked and saw how close McKinney was to getting his hands on that? Same thing.
Oh yeah, week 1. Yeah,
it was McDuffie.
I'm sorry, McDuffie. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Same thing here. But beautiful throw. I mean, you have to have confidence, conviction to win it like that.
This is the NFL. You got to make tight window throws.
This is when Greg, you talk about whatever, it's three or 5 steps, back foot out. Like he is so determined.
Rhythm. Baker's a great rhythm throw. Every quarterback theoretically is. I mean, there are some who aren't, but theoretically, every quarterback should be better when they're playing in rhythm.
Yeah, he got a clean pocket, by the clean look, and he delivered.
That was really big time.
Nice. Great throw.
Yep.
I mean, Slay had good coverage there. That wasn't terrible coverage. He just put it in the only place that probably Palmer could have caught it.
Yep. Let's finish it off. There's one more I wanted to show you. This is a Baker Mayfield hitting Cade Otton, sort of over the middle on a crosser here.
I think I know the play. Yeah.
Yeah, he got about 18 yards on it, and this is what you talk about. Sometimes when you talk about Matthew Stafford, the receiver may not be open when Matthew Stafford throws the ball or when he catches the ball, but he gets the ball there. And this is a case as I run it, you can see
And
there's,
what do you see? Reduced splits and motion. There you
I
go.
was going to
Mhm.
say, how common is that theme? Reduce splits and
A
motion.
lot of teams are doing these McVay. Even Tennessee was doing it when I was at training camp. They were their OC Brian Callahan did coach under McVay, but they're doing it.
Now here's Otten, by the way. He's an inline tight end right
Yeah,
there.
he's an attached tight end here.
All right, so this makes it, obviously they're trying to make it look like they might run the ball on this play with an inline tight end. Now, as you fake the handoff, watch Otten. There's 3 people around him. And now there's still 2 people. Look at this throw.
Well,
It's pretty good, I thought.
yeah, what I'd say here is that when Baker off the quick run action, he sees the guy step up.
Right.
And then he
this is
sees the
Blankenship,
back.
I think. Yep.
Yeah. And then
Dean doesn't see where
he sees the
doesn't see
back
where
of
Otton is.
Dean.
Right. He
And
sees the
you're
back
taught
of
as
the
a
jersey.
quarterback, if you see the back of a defender, he doesn't know where the ball is.
Right.
Yep. Throw
Right.
it.
Right.
The veteran play. Nice job.
Yeah. I was just thought it was pretty interesting because he had the again. I know he saw the back of the jersey, but there was still traffic there. It's not necessarily you had said in the pregame show, Baker has a stronger arm than some people realize, and I thought that was
Baker has. If you talk to people in the league, they'll tell
Mhm.
you Baker. Not that he's top of the, he's obviously his arm's not strong like Stafford's, but
Mhm.
they'll tell you Baker has a big arm. Baker can throw the ball.
Yeah. Well, he showed that he put some, especially in the second half when he started to get warm, like you said, they started to play man
Well, it's so
defense.
funny that we're talking about Baker because I remember watching his tape coming out of Oklahoma.
Mhm.
And back then, for whatever reason, I didn't watch anywhere near as much college football as I do now. Now I pretty much watch a lot of college football on Saturdays. And I had this impression of Baker as like a kind of a runaround guy, and maybe that's because of stuff I heard of off the, whatever. I had that impression. And then I put his tape on and I was like, this guy's a really good pocket player.
Mhm.
He throws the ball really, really well. And while he can move, you certainly wouldn't call Baker creative as a runner. He's a
Right.
pocket player.
Yep. Yep.
But so getting back to the Birds, I think with a bye week, they've got some things to try to figure out offensively. I mean, you really have to try to, Kellen Moore has to continue to try to understand Hurts's strengths and minimize his limitations, which he has limitations. Try to figure out what the balance is with their offense, how to get Hurts comfortable, but yet not ignore Barkley, but yet not go so much to Barkley that you're just a run team, and that's it. Obviously, getting the receivers back will help because there's no question that Jalen's very comfortable, particularly throwing it to Brown. That will help for sure. Defensively, the defense is really built around the D line because they don't blitz a ton, and they don't play a lot with a safety up in the box. So they basically need the D line to be a factor. That's really where it starts.
So, Greg, we had Brian Hoyer on, Brian. So we had Hoyer on our show this week, and Brian was with Fangio, Geoff, for 1 year in Chicago?
2016 Chicago, yeah.
16. And we asked him, hey, what, in your view, going against Fangio and also being on the same team with him, he said it's all about rush with him because he listen, you got to the quarterback you got to get at the quarterback. That's the only way the scheme will work, and they're not getting.
Well, that's what I'm just saying. It all starts. I mean, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. And Brian was pretty emphatic about it.
He's not a high percentage blitzer, like he's not in the Wink
One of the
Martindale
lowest.
category.
Always one of those.
So it has to be with the D line,
Right?
Because what he's counting on is what he does on the back end is going to cause at times confusion for the quarterback, and that the quarterback's going to have to hold the ball. That's what he's hoping. Okay. And then the rush has to get there.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, got a lot to think about this bye week about how he's going to figure out a way to either get these players to get off blocks and get to the quarterback, or how he's going to have to scheme it up.
Because at some point, if you can't get to the quarterback with 4, you're going to have to bring 5. Even Vic. I mean, you can't let quarterbacks. I mean, Baker threw 47 balls. I can't think of 2 or 3 snaps in which he may have been uncomfortable.
Right.
I mean,
and Greg, think about it. They threw the ball 33 times in the first half. They're telling you that they came into the game. This is what we're going to do.
That's the point, Adam. You just nailed the exact right point. It's the fact that that's what their game plan was.
We knew they could do it.
Yeah, because they knew they could do it. Correct.
Which, by the
Sorry,
way,
folks,
I
we're
think
just
people
being
take for
honest.
granted every single coach or coordinator goes into a game with a game plan. And I can't, I don't know what the percentages is, but it's certainly not 80 to 100 that what you plan out works the way you wanted it to work. But that game
honestly,
was one of
that's
those rare everything works for us games.
But listen, but you knew going in from tape study, Geoff, that okay, Eagles have major pass rush issues. Major.
Right.
Vic doesn't blitz. We know he's not going to blitz. So we think, though they don't have a great offensive line, we talked about before the game.
But if everything's quick rhythm, the O-line, you
Yeah,
minimize
defeated
their
the pass
their
rush.
defense.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. They had a great game plan. They executed it. And just to close this out, Vic and Clint Hurt, the D-line coach, and Jeremiah Washburn, the edges coach, they got to get this right. Like this is
And see, that's why, guys, you
challenge
can't say, well, they were out-coached. They
Yeah.
weren't out-coached because at some point, your D linemen have to be able to win. At some point, that has to happen. Now,
Bryce Huff.
yeah, at some point, they have to impact the quarterback. And or else you're going to have to start playing more press, and then you're going to have to see if Mitchell's ready to do that.
Right.
And if he's not, then you have to feel like, well, can Rodgers do it? I mean, if you can't rush the quarterback, you're going to have to disrupt receivers.
One or the other. Agreed.
No doubt. All right, great stuff. Awesome breakdown. That's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Tape on Inside the Birds. For Greg Cosell and Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. We'll catch you on the next one.